Hello and welcome to Conversations with Dr. Stephen Greer. I'm Dr. Greer. I'm founder of the disclosureproject.org and cseti.org. And I'd like to thank the folks at the World Puja Network for hosting us here every 2 weeks to bring you up to date with what we're doing on all our various projects around the world and to introduce some new thought guests. And I'm really excited today about having Steven Sadleir with us today. He is a wonderful man who I've had the opportunity to meet and runs the Self-Awareness Institute and provides training in self-realization and enlightenment and consciousness to thousands of people all over the world. And he contacted us last year and has been really helpful in networking with our group with what we're doing with the film Sirius, which, of course, you can see more information about at Sirius, that's S-I-R-I-U-S, like the star system, Sirius.neverendinglight.com. And I'd really like to take this moment to just thank Steve for all his work and also for being with me today on this interview.
Well, ditto, Doctor. I mean, when you look at, we're both playing our part in changing the world. I love what you're doing to raise the consciousness of the planet.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Well, why don't you tell people a little bit about, your background and some of the work that you've done. I know you have a new book and all of that's come out recently.
All right, I'll give you the short version, and we can expand if you want. But I started meditating when I was 5, and at 16, I went on a vision quest and got a calling from God to study all the spiritual paths of the world. So for the next 20 years of my life, I ended up studying every single major religion, denomination, arcane teaching, mystery school, and got to meet most of the gurus that were around during the 60s, 70s, 80s, and into the 90s. And I wrote a book. It became a bestseller. So that's where I got my background, was studying world religions and traveling around the world and meeting with different gurus. And then I apprenticed with Vethathiri Maharishi, a Tamil Siddha from South India, in other words, and he's a Kundalini Master in a lineage that's thousands of years old, and he basically took me under his wing. I was his apprentice, and when he finished teaching, he had centers all over the world, 2 ashrams in India. When he was done teaching, because he just got too old, when he got into his 90s, he asked me to continue.
Right.
And that's how the Self-Awareness Institute got started. I really kind of picked up teaching from this lineage. Excellent.
Very good. Yeah, well, my journey started in a similar time frame in the 70s and became a meditation teacher and began to learn Sanskrit and the ancient Vedas. And after some years of doing that, then went into medicine. And I was always grateful that I had studied higher consciousness and practiced these meditation techniques and learned the science of consciousness before I learned the science of medicine, because the most important part of any discipline is understanding the consciousness of the human condition and of human awareness and how it ties into cosmic consciousness and what that interface is. And this is something that I was always grateful for. And the more I went into medical school and residency and all the madness that entails, the more happy I was that I had done it the other way around. Most people were sort of shocked that, that most people think that I got involved with these issues after medicine. I said no. Luckily, I had spent a number of years studying this and actually learning to do Sanskrit pujas and meditation techniques and mantra meditation and various approaches to enlightenment before I went into the scientific world and the rigors of medical school. And it was a very wise thing to have done. I'm glad I had the opportunity to do it. And at one point I was spending almost 8 hours a day in meditation, and that's when I had many of my most important breakthroughs in my life.
Exactly.
And I was very glad that I took that time then, because it certainly wouldn't have been possible later with 4 children and 6 grandchildren and medical career and everything else. So it was wonderful that
and movie,
and so that's it. So I think one of the exciting aspects, and you brought this up first time that you contacted me, was this idea of the conscious and spiritual component of other transdimensional and interstellar civilizations that are here, and how much of a key it is to understanding all of that is understanding the science of consciousness and the nature of the mind, which is the cosmic mind that's within each of us.
Exactly. Understanding consciousness, the stratification, different planes of consciousness, what beings are. It's a whole new science kind of emerging that, as you're saying, as we're seeing, Doc, this emergence between science and spirituality, the science of consciousness is really just now in its renaissance.
Right. Absolutely, and with the contact protocols, I mean, people who want to learn more about this, we have an app now, Contact, ET Contact app as well on the for iPhones as well as for Android now, and thousands of people are learning how to do meditation and remote viewing distant places in outer space to make contact with these civilizations and to, as it were, vector them or guide them into an area and make contact. And, we now have thousands of people who are connected into teams all over the world, and the global Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind initiative has really taken off in the last couple of years to where now there are teams almost in every country and certainly in every continent doing this. And the purpose of it is for people to become citizen diplomats, understanding the nature of cosmic awareness to these extraterrestrial civilizations. And I've always maintained that the reason that's the primary science that has to be mastered, more so than telecommunications or jet propulsion or all these other linear sciences, is that when you're going from one star system to another, you are, by definition, traveling beyond the speed of light.
Right.
And
well, you're transdimensional even.
Well, this is what you can't go beyond the speed of light without going into another dimension.
Right.
In other words, these are synonyms. And so what many people don't understand is that if you are a civilization that has mastered going from one galaxy or one star system to another, you have to have also mastered transdimensional sciences that cross into not only consciousness and thought, but also how you take a massive spacecraft and create an electron voltage shift to where that entire craft phases into a higher dimension, literally, and goes out of linear 3D space-time through another dimension to get here, because they're not traveling through linear space. Because if they were staying in a material form, they would have to be limited to the speed of light. And if it's the speed of light, the Andromeda Galaxy is a couple million light years away. Well, it would take you 2 million years to get there.
Why it worked that way. Yeah.
And 2 million years to get back. And this is why many people who in ancient times had contact with these ETs thought that they were having contact with the spirit world, because there is this overlap. There's a distinction, but there's an overlap, because if you have that level of technology, almost every aspect of how they would manifest would look miraculous to people who don't understand this new science and the new physics that goes along with it.
That's right. By the way, after reading your book, we did a book exchange. I was using your protocols. I got a little more interested in making, I'll say, physical contact with other forms of intelligence, because I've been used to other dimensional contact, you might say, or when you go into a transcendental state, you often make contact with entities that we'll call astral or other levels of consciousness. But after using your protocols, I was inspired. I actually got a visitation, and you're some of the few people I can actually tell this to without getting the funny looks. But a craft literally came into Laguna Beach here, and because I'd made contact, you might say telepathically.
Right.
And at the time, your own mind is kind of shocked by these things. My own mind was questioning whether what I was seeing is real. I got a beam of light shot right into my living room, and so if there was any doubt in my mind, it was removed. So what you're kind of opening up the Pandora's box, Doctor. You're really you are ambassadors. You're inviting visitations. You're getting other forms of intelligence to be more active on the planet. So I applaud you for that.
Well, and the whole concept behind the Close Encounter of the Fifth Kind initiative, and for those of you who are new to this concept, the Close Encounter of the Fifth Kind is when humans initiate the contact as diplomats and invite the ETs here. And, that I coined that term in 1990, and subsequently a NASA research scientist, Dr. Richard Haynes, wrote a book about this called Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, where he took the concept and some cases I had found and wrote a whole book about all the cases around the world where people had made contact with ETs and it had been initiated, or if there had been an interaction that had been deliberate and thought through by the person. And all the other categories of close encounters were ones that were passive, where someone was just driving along a road and happened to see something, or a craft was landed, or they happened to have a contact, or they went on board a craft, but it was all initiated by the ETs. This is flipping this around to where we're saying that humans have to mature, instead of being passive observers, active and empowered participants in an interplanetary moment. Because what I have always told people is that this is not an age of enlightenment only on Earth, that there is a universal impulse moving through the entirety of the cosmos, and we are moving from one yuga, or very long era that's closing, Kali Yuga, into a very big new era. That's the age of enlightenment, but it isn't just Earth. It's on all these other planets. And so this quickening is taking place throughout the cosmos, non-locally, through the non-local omnipresent field of higher consciousness, and that by humans taking their empowerment and making contact as you did, these ETs that have been watching our primitive civilization develop for thousands of years, they are taking that as the signal that says, yes, now these people are ready for open contact. So many people will say, well, when will we be ready for that? And I said, when we make ourselves ready, and when we show the ETs we are ready. And as soon as we do, the whole cosmic doors flood open, and it is sort of a Pandora's box. And by the way, this stuff, which I get ridiculed a lot by certain linear types of people in the whole u.f.o subculture, was the main reason why the head of Army Intelligence and the CIA director invited me to come and brief them, because they knew that this was the Rosetta Stone of the future of contact, and they were appalled in some ways that I was sharing this with the public, because it was letting the cat out of the bag, because it's way beyond shining lights and lasers in the sky. It has to do with your mind shining through the cosmos, but in a very coherent way with very specific techniques. In fact, for those of you who want to join us, we're going to be on an island in the Gulf of Mexico in February, Marco Island, Florida, and we're going to be out there for an entire week with a team of people. I mean, it's limited to a small group, where we're going to be making contact this way. And we have literally had craft fly right over us and then send scintillating beams all around us that everyone has seen in the last 2 years that we've been out there on this island. And we have filmed it. I mean, the footage of this is astonishing. So what's interesting is for people to realize that once you begin to make that effort, the ETs go, oh, well, here's a group of people who actually are an individual or a group who understand the principles of interdimensional and transdimensional science and consciousness, so that they're indicating they're ready to make contact with us. Because, being a rocket scientist just won't cut it. This is something where you have to go from, the paradigm of Wernher von Braun and rockets to the very high voltage classified systems that deal with what's been termed at the CIA WSFM. It stands for Weird Science and Frickin' Magic, and that is what they call this, by the way. And it deals with all the sciences, and they are, by the way, electronics that deal with the interface between thought, electromagnetism, matter, space, time, consciousness. There's a nexus where all that comes together, and in that nexus is also where you get into the ability to materialize, dematerialize, levitate, all the things that you read about. Of course, we're on the World Puja Network. We can talk about this in the ancient masters, where they would be able to materialize items, levitate, bilocate, trilocate. These so-called siddhis, or SIDDHIS, or abilities, are all things that are actually now understood scientifically, although they're very classified. And we're going to move into a time where not only will people have this ability in consciousness, but there will be sciences that will permit us to do this, not only for transportation and communication, but for energy